Hey everybody, my name is Mike Hagan. I want to show you how to use the Datacolor SypderCHECKR and Datacolor SpyderCUBE together in a portrait scenario. What we've got here is we've got the new Spyder Pro kit, and this is designed for photographers. There are 4 products in there. You've got the screen calibration tool called the SpyderX Elite. Of course, you have the SpyderCUBE, you've got the SpyderCHECKR, and then you've got this lens calibration tool that I show, and I show how to use all of these in independent videos. But there's a very interesting combination tool here that goes with the SpyderCHECKR and the SpyderCUBE. Let me show you how they work together, and then we'll do a full-on photo shoot showing you how it works on set, and then we'll bring all of it into Lightroom, and I'll show you how it works so we can do some custom profiles and make sure our colors are spot on. Let me show you how this all goes together. I like setting it up on a light stand or on a tripod because that reduces any variance that you might have from the model holding it at slightly odd angles. Also, if you set it up on a light stand, you can do this before the model comes on set, which saves you a lot of time and helps your model relax. But we're gonna do it with the model on set today because she's already here. All right, so let's go ahead and start. So we start with this, of course, the SpyderCHECKR. On the bottom of this is a 1/4 by 20 thread, and that will screw right onto the top of the light stand. So I'll do that right now. The SpyderCHECKR also on the back of it has a receded thread. You can see here it's spring loaded. And what I can do is I can take the SpyderCUBE and screw it right onto that. So they mount together. It's actually quite useful, and I'll explain why it's useful here in just 1 second. All right, we're good to go there. So I'm gonna rotate this forward. Keep in mind that this is going to be basically in the same light as my subject. And before I start taking the photo, let me describe why you might use them together. Well, the first one is you have all the color swatches, and you can use the software to do a custom color profile, also to set your white balance and all of the color consistency between the different cameras. That's great. But why the SpyderCUBE? Well, the SpyderCUBE is designed in such a way that you can gather light from different areas. So let's say you're shooting in a mixed light scenario. Maybe over here you've got daylight and over there you've got tungsten. You can actually pick one of these 2 sides to prioritize a specific color temperature for your color profile. I think that's pretty cool. Finally, you also have this hole in the front which allows you to set a true black point for your photography. Whereas the SpyderCHECKR doesn't have a solid black. You know, this black here is actually at 4% reflectance. This black is at 0% reflectance. So you can set a true black for your photography. Now that this is set up, I'll set up my studio lights and we'll take our first sample shot of the calibration kit right here. All right, that looks great. I've got the calibration tool in the same light as the model. I'm looking at a few things with that now. I'm here on the top. I'm looking at the sphere for catch lights or any weird lights that are coming into the scene. I'm also checking on the photo on the back of my camera whether or not I have gathered an appropriate exposure. I'm just looking at it, make sure all the colors are present there on the back of the screen, and they are. So now it's time to start taking some portraits of Alicia. Here we go, nice. And let's cross your arms. Super. Super. Great. Love it. And let's move your nose towards me, chin down a tiny bit, lean forward towards me. Yeah. Super. All right, that's a wrap. So let's go into Lightroom. We'll download these photos and I'll show you how to process them to get great colors and great contrast. We're back from our shoot where we used the SpyderCHECKR and the SpyderCUBE together in the studio. I've got both of them here. Just to remind you that they fit together on one panel, and we've got the SpyderCUBE on top with the SpyderCHECKR down below. And now I've got all of that information inside of Lightroom. So let me show you how we use these photos in Lightroom to create that custom profile and also to set our tonality and our color. All right, so we'll go here. I've got the images loaded into Lightroom. I've already pre-selected a few of them that I'm just gonna work on pretty quickly. So I'll go into the Develop pane, letter D for Develop. And now that they're together, I can choose a variety of ways to work on these images. One way is by just using the SpyderCUBE to kind of set the profile overall, or to set the highlights, the shadows, and the white balance. Another way is to use the SpyderCHECKR and then export that image out into the SpyderCHECKR software to create a more custom profile. I'll show both, but I am going to start with the SpyderCUBE. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my white balance tool here. I'll click on that and then click here on the neutral gray. And when I do that, you'll see the colors did shift ever so slightly. Next, I'll take my mouse and I'll bring the mouse down here into the white area. Now what I'm looking for is over here on the histogram. I'm looking for those RGB values in the white zone to be somewhere around maybe 95%, 96%, something like that. Notice here on this side of the cube kind of matches up with this side on Alicia's face. And you can see this side of her face looks a little bit washed out. Well, I look at my RGB values on that side of the cube, I am also around 98%. So I'm pushing the upper limit of detail from those highlights. I might want to decrease my highlight slider and my white slider just a little bit so I can push some more information back into the white and onto her face. So I'm looking to get that maybe down to around 96% or so. Yeah, that looks good. I'm around 96, 97, maybe just a tiny bit more. Okay, now I will go here into the shadow region, and I want those shadows to be somewhere in the 5–6% range, and you can see they're a little bit low, so I want to bring those shadows up. The reason why is you don't want your shadows to be completely blacked out, right? Because if she's wearing a shirt that has some black in there, you might actually want a little bit of texture detail on her shirt or in her sweater. So you want the shadow area of the cube to be in the 5 to 6, maybe even 7% range. All right, I'm happy with that. We'll go with 5% and maybe a little more. All right, I'm looking at the RGB values in my histogram. I'm about 5.4 to 5.9%. Great. Now I'll move the mouse over to the black section of the SpyderCUBE, and I want that to be really low, like somewhere in the 1 to 2% range, and it is. So I'm happy with that overall. So let's just go look kind of at the before and after here. The left photo is the before, and the right photo is the after. It's really subtle. In fact, there isn't a whole lot of difference between the two of those, which is great, but there is a subtle color balance shift, white balance changed, and you saw the work that I did to make sure I've got detail on her face. So I think this is a good move. I think it was a good decision to make those changes. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy all the settings. That's Command-C or Control-C if you're on a Windows machine. And I want to copy everything, the treatment, the profile, the white balance, all the exposure and tonality stuff. So I hit copy there. Now what I can do is I can go over to my other images and I just type Command-V or paste. And when I did that, it was just a really subtle shift, right? Very, very subtle. But now I know I have detail in the highlights and detail in my shadows. Let's do that again one more time on this image. Great. I know my colors are right on, and it looks like a great image. Now, remember, this is the starting point. I know now that I'm calibrated. I know now that my colors are spot on. I can take it from there as long as I don't mess with the colors too much, maybe with the temperature or the tint. I'm good to go. I can add a little more contrast if I want. I can add a little less contrast, dehaze, all of that stuff works because now I'm at a good starting point. All right, so what we're gonna do now is I am gonna go back and we're gonna use the SpyderCHECKR. I'll show you how we create a custom profile with the SpyderCHECKR software. So I'm gonna reset these images, reset them back to the way they were taken in camera. And go back to this first image, and I will reset that as well to get rid of all the adjustments we made. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a virtual copy, just because I like working with virtual copies, and I'm going to crop down until I only can see the SpyderCHECKR colors, the color grids basically. There we go. That looks about right. So I crop that. Now I will export that out as a JPEG, okay? So I'll export this out as a JPEG. Now no settings have been applied to this, right? This is all as taken in camera with the default white balance, all of that good stuff. I'm gonna go back to that folder, the subfolder where I exported that to. There's the image. You can see I've got some other profiles that I was working on earlier in the day. Those I'm not interested in. I'm only interested in this profile taken in this specific light. Okay, now what I'll do is I will fire up my SpyderCHECKR software. And this is a download, by the way. You'll need to go to the Datacolor website and download the SpyderCHECKR software. It's a free download when you purchase the SpyderCHECKR product or when you buy the Pro kit. All right, so this is open now. So I will take this image and I will literally drag it into the SpyderCHECKR software. Now what I need to do is I need to adjust or tell the software, you can see that it's got this color palette and this color grid. I need to put each of those colors on the correct position on the SpyderCHECKR tool. So I'm just going to click each of the corners here and drag it so they're all just about centered. It doesn't have to be exactly centered, just close enough. Okay, now I'll go ahead and click Save Calibration. And when I do so, I'm going to name that. And so I'll call this Alicia. She's our model for the day. And Alicia Studio Portrait. And then I will call that SpyderCHECKR. And I've made a few of these presets over the last few days, so I'm going to call that SpyderCHECKR and Cube, just so I can distinguish specifically which one this is. So I click OK. Now I have to quit this software package, go back into Lightroom, and then load that preset into Lightroom. So go back to my image or my photos here. We'll click that one. And I'm going to go into Develop. And then here are my presets. You can see that I have to actually import that new preset that I made. So I right click on the presets. I then go to my user preset folder. And then I click the one right there. That's the one we just made a few seconds ago. Alicia Studio Portrait SpyderCHECKR Cube. All right, I click import. And now that's located over here. So what I'm going to do is go back to an image that I took in the studio, right? And I'm going to apply this preset to that image. I do that, I just click on it, and now that preset is applied. So what has happened? Well, the SpyderCHECKR software then went through and made sure that all the colors that we measured on the actual SpyderCHECKR matched the colors that are in the software. In other words, that this, we'll call this pink, matches the actual pink in real world. And this gray is the correct brightness of gray. And this red is the right red. So red on this matches red numerically. So that's now a very accurate rendition of Alicia in the studio. And this is a starting point, right? So I may decide that I like that, or I may decide that I want to change that and modify it. For example, I look at that image and I think, you know, it needs a little more contrast. So I'm going to add some more contrast, right? And maybe even though I know I've got detail in the highlights, it looks maybe slightly brighter on her forehead than I want it to. So I can knock that down. I can add some clarity if I want to. I don't have to go with exactly what the SpyderCHECKR tells me to go with. Now I would go with what the SpyderCHECKR told me to go with if I'm producing photos for a client. A lot of times a client wants the photos to be spot on. They want those colors to be absolutely perfect. And then their team, their media team, will take those and modify them as they see fit. But my job as a photographer is to make sure everything is produced at the highest quality and the highest accuracy. And that's what the SpyderCHECKR does for me. All right, let's go ahead and look at this photo and we'll compare it with the original. So the original is on the left and the SpyderCHECKR, the new SpyderCHECKR profile, is on the right. Now, you may look at the one on the left and say, hey, I'd like the colors better. Well, that's a preference. the one on the right is the more accurate. Maybe the one on the left, the straight out of camera, is a little bit more pleasing to you aesthetically. Again, that comes back to you as the artist, and you get to make that decision. So overall, I think that SpyderCHECKR and the SpyderCUBE, I think they're a great tool. I think they're a very useful tool. Knowing how to use them will make you a better photographer as well. Most importantly, it allows you to get your colors right, your contrast right, and your white balance right. So I hope this video was helpful to you. If you liked it, I would love it if you gave me a thumbs up down below. I'd also love it if you subscribe to my channel. And finally, if you want to be notified when we have new videos, go ahead and click the bell button down below. It's somewhere around here. And that will notify you when we have a new video, which is approximately once per week. Feel free to comment if you have any questions or need to know more about the SpyderCHECKR or the SpyderCUBE. I'm happy to help you out. I'll get back to you right away in the comment section. So with that, have a great day and keep on shooting.